All right, today's gear review, McIntosh Mac 1500 stereo receiver. So these were manufactured between 65 and 67. I'll get into some of the specifics on this. I did flash up the little slide showing kind of what's going on. 30 watts per channel, heavy, right? This one does not have the case, so I'm assuming the dimensions and the weight that I included is for a unit outside of the case, not in the case. So this was the first McIntosh receiver, and this kind of launched the line. I think their Audio Classics had a, what did they call it? Audio Classics, at least on their website, they were selling like a demo version of this, or so. I don't remember what they call it. I'll flash it up here if I can find it. But basically, Audio Classics was selling kind of a unicorn version of this. You know, maybe it was an initial release or a test or something like that. And the word's totally escaping me right now. But this kind of launched the line. So it started with the 1500, then went to the 1700, the 1900. Stereo Tech was in there somewhere. And then finally the 4100, and then the newer receivers, which I'm more into the vintage stuff, so I don't even know what the newer receiver model lines are. These came with or without the cabinet. Now you will find people claiming that the L19 cabinet will fit the Mac 1500, and the L19 cabinet was made for the 1700 and the 1900. It will not fit this, however, because it's not tall enough. And when I say it's not tall enough, the opening and the top is not tall enough. So be careful. You have to get an L15 cabinet. So you're kind of stuck buying used, or I think there are a couple of people that might make, aftermarket ones. I happen to have an L15 on my Mac 1700, so I lucked out, but it's in really rough shape, and I wouldn't put this in there anyway because of the heat from the tubes. Usually when I listen to this, it's in a big kind of opening in my cabinet in my living room. This one's I pulled this out of rotation for service. It started getting a little crackly on one of the channels, so I've got to see what's going on with that. So this is a hybrid, right? So it's a solid state preamp and a tube power amp. From what I could find, I did not do anything to this. I bought this restored, I guess. It has Hayseed Hamfest caps in it. So someone went through here, replaced all the caps and the tubes and all that stuff. In terms of tubes, I'm not a tube guy. I have no idea what tubes are in here. I'll flash up a list per the service manual, what tubes are in here and what they do. I don't even know what tubes were actually put into this one when it was restored. I should probably look at that, and then I will. I'll probably shoot a quick video on this when I go through and try to figure out what's going on with the bum channel, or the channel that's getting a little dicey. So aesthetics, this just screams mid-century modern, very unique, sort of reminiscent of a Fisher 500, but not really. I really like how it's brushed aluminum, and then you have this metal or white-ish plate on the 1700. This is black. Other than that, the 1700 and the 1500 look very, very similar to each other. They're both FM only. There's no AM on either one. Naturally, as a tube hybrid, at least, it has a very, very warm sound. Now, it's interesting that they did the solid state preamp and the tube power. Typically, I think you see tube preamp and solid state power. I hope I said that right the first time. But this is reversed. It still sounds really good, really mellow. 30 watts. Operation pretty easy. Hookups are fairly straightforward except for the speaker terminals. And I'll flash up a picture of this, one that I took, and then I'll also include one from McIntosh's website. But what I do is as seen in the picture, I use banana jack adapters. And then when you're hooking up the speakers, you have to make sure you know the impedance of your speakers, because it's not just left and right. You have to go to common and then pick your 4, 8, or 16 ohm impedance of the speakers. So other than that, the hookups are fairly straightforward. McIntosh gear is notorious for having the speaker hookups reversed, so keep that in mind on this. Other than that, I mean, there are a couple of gotchas on this. Well, I'd have to look at the back. And just look at the picture. There might be 1 or 2 RCA connectors that are used for either like a test point or for hooking up like an HD tape head, because this does have HD on it. So you just have to be aware of what you're connecting to it and how it's going to sound. HD tape head, that's almost like a phono. So it's got a preamp to it, if I remember correctly. So if you plug a line level into that, it's not going to produce the sound that you think it should. Serviceability, I have no idea. I don't work on tube gear. I've only done a very few tube items, right? Tube units. I did not do anything to this. I'm going to get into this and do a little bit of service to it. I don't work on tube gear. So really it depends on your comfort level. And that's all I got for you. I have no practical experience. The only piece of tube gear that I actually went in and recapped and replaced the tubes on was that Pioneer SX34B. And it scared the crap out of me when I wired a cap in wrong and it blew up, and that was bad. But I just don't get into tube gear. So there are much more experienced people with this particular model and the McIntosh tube gear on forums like Audio Karma. You can go out there and see what their experiences were. I have no recommendations in terms of when you get one of these, you have to do this. The only thing that I will talk about, and I just realized that I skipped right over the features and functions, this is kind of a good segue. The only thing you really have to be aware of is the combination volume and power control, because they're known to be bad on Macintoshes. They go bad. What'll happen is the channels don't track, right? So you can get a channel imbalance. Left or right will be louder than the other. Sometimes that can be controlled just by wiggling the volume control. Sometimes the carbon track in there, it's worn down. Maybe the incorrect cleaner was used on it. A couple of different reasons why they kind of go bad, but that is one thing. If you pick one of these up, this is probably not going to be good. McIntosh, at times they will sell replacement. I think I reached out to them and asked about a replacement volume power switch for a 1700, and they told me they no longer manufacture them. So you're kind of at the mercy of aftermarket parts. And 402 Vinyl has one of these with an aftermarket. And the goofy thing is, and I apologize for getting my reflection in the black, but when you turn it on, you don't get any volume until you're about here because of how the pot is attenuated, right? So on this, you get volume the second you turn it on. So it's just kind of a weird pot that you buy. And I've heard people complain about those replacement pots and not being any better than the old pots that were bad. So typically 1900s, I can get those. 15 and 1700s. It may be a thing where McIntosh gets so many and then they just sell out and say they don't have any, or maybe they don't get any at all anymore. I don't know. In terms of the features and functions of this, so we've got input selector. Again, we have tape HD, so be aware of what that actually is. We have auxiliary, FM auto and mono, phono 1 and 2, tape HD, balance, stereo and mono, tape monitor, that's different than tape HD, right? Then we have a low and a high filter, muting in and out, loudness out and in. Then we have split bass, split treble. I always say treble. I don't know why. Treble, right? So you can adjust the bass per channel for either one of those tone controls. Volume, you have the dial, the tuner dial. You've got a glass tuner dial display, right? Blue signal meter, stereo lamp, right? Pretty straightforward in terms of operation. Just make sure you understand, right, that tape HD and tape monitor aren't going to be the same thing. So again, when you are looking at getting one of these, depending upon your comfort level, right, working on tube gear or hybrid amps or whatever the case is. Sorry, I'm fidgeting with something over here. It uses point-to-point wiring, no removable printed circuit boards that I could see in here at all. You've got the volume control issue, you know, things to look for, knobs, and I've explained this in other videos. You can't just buy like, oh, that looks like it's the same as a 1700 knob. You can't assume that the way the knobs are made, they're going to fit interchangeably between 1500s and 1700s. I'm not saying they won't, but what I found out on my 1900 when I bought two volume power potentiometers. When I gave them the serial number, the position of the notch in the dial on one was aligned, on the other one, it was way up here because this dial, right, and the potentiometer it connected to, they must have changed orientation at some point, if that makes sense. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to get a balance control off of a 1700, well, maybe it's not aligned the same way it is on this. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying you want to do some homework and make sure that it's interchangeable, right? If they had a production change at some point over the 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whichever unit you're talking about, if they had a production change, they had to change a part, this may not align correctly. So just be aware of that. And then glass is a big one. The outside glass, I thought I was ordering the inside glass from Audio Classics. When they said Mac 1500 glass, I got the outside glass. I just kept it. It was like $120. I mean, it's a lot to spend, but just in case I come across another one of these, I have it. The inside dial glass, that's very, very, very delicate. You don't want to use any type of liquid when you clean that. You want to be super careful because you can rub those numbers off, and you'll see these go up for sale with that being damaged. So you want to be aware of that if you're looking for one of these. So really, you know, that's a lot to say. Cosmetics, completeness, make sure it's good, because you may have a hard time finding parts for it if you're not careful. Now, in terms of picking one of these up, and again, I'm just going by my limited experience. I haven't really been looking for these for too long, or at these for too long, I should say. I would say restored. So in this condition, no cabinet, because naturally a cabinet's going to add $200 to $300 because the cabinets are kind of hard to find, and if you buy an aftermarket, you're looking at like $300. You're looking at $1,500 or more for a restored unit. I think that's what I paid for this. Again, I didn't do any work on it. Someone else had worked on it. I just kind of had the McIntosh. You know, I'll be honest, it came into the shop and I realized that they made so few 1500s, and I'll flash up the number. I found on an Audio Karma thread that, you know, they made only a limited number of these, and I love McIntosh gear, and I thought I'm probably never ever going to see one of these again. So I wound up buying it. You know, just add to the collection. And I do listen to it all the time. This was like a daily driver, so to speak, in my living room. So I listened to it for a couple of hours a week. So anyway, $1,500. That's restored. Maybe a little bit more. I mean, I've seen these listed out there for more than $2,000 with the cabinet. So it just depends. You know, so I would say that, let me take a step back. So a restored unit, rebuilt like this with the cabinet, probably around $2,000. A working unit like this, although this has been restored, $1,500. I don't see these going for much less than about maybe $700 or $800 if it's not working. And I think that's really on the cheap end. These seem to have a pretty tight price range. So, you know, you're probably looking at between $1,000 and $2,000 even for a a for repair unit. But again, there are so few sales of these, it's really hard to gauge. You could possibly stumble upon one of these for $500. I don't know. But chances are, and I've seen them listed out there where it was at a really good price, but then the picture shows all the tubes are gone. So the tubes are gone, and then you have to ask yourself, like, oh gosh, what did someone do to this, right? What electronic shape is this in? So, oh, and also the FM section is tube as well, and that's the same as the 1700. So again, pricing, this is really difficult. Prices are all over the place. It really comes down to condition and completeness, and you could spend a buttload on one of these, or I don't see you spending probably much less than $1,000, maybe $700 or $800. I don't know, but I really, really like the unit. I think it's beautiful. I mean, this is my favorite between the Mac receivers that I have. I have a 15, a 17, and a 19. I'm doing reviews on all of them. I would say the 1500 is probably the best looking of the three. I am reluctant to say that I prefer the looks of this to the classic Sony. And to me, Sony and Mac, they're neck and neck. And I'm not discounting Pioneer, Sansui, Kenwood. I had a review of the Kenwood 6000, and that's a fantastic integrated amplifier, right? But for me, it's Sony and McIntosh all the way. And I'm talking like old Sony, like late 60s, early 70s Sony. So anyway, I'm just kind of rambling at this point. So Mac 1500, great receiver, sounds fantastic. Not going to blow the windows out of your house at 30 watts per channel, but if you just want to slide into, relaxing, listening to some music, jazz is perfect for this. Classic rock is perfect for this. If you throw some metal on here, some punk, which I listen to a lot of metal and punk too. I have better systems I can listen to that stuff on. But in terms of just easing into, an hour or two of listening, this is just, it's perfect with some good speakers. I have this matched when I have it out with some JBL Lancer 77s, because that's kind of how I have my setup in the living room. Someday I'll shoot a video of my setups, kind of show you what I've got going on right now. But anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up for the Mac 1500. Great little receiver. I wouldn't be scared of picking one up, especially if you're comfortable working on tube gear. And I think I'll wrap it up with that. So as always, if you like what you see, hit like, hit subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video.